to leave this earth with nothing. Said I've been working my poor fingers to the bone. Gonna leave my baby.
How do I do that? The stairs on that? Oh, you just go down the stairs on that? Yeah.
I come before you now with a prepared statement of self-defense. Not because the course which has led me here is one of guilt, but because I know that the system which would choose to not only judge me in harsh measure, but enact action against me if I am to be tried, would whittle away my physical and mental state so much so that necessity will under no such circumstance for well-being now, if then in fact comes to be, I prepare a statement for. When the law rains down so much so upon its keepers that they are at odds in keeping dry with it, where a local boy gets harassed for selling honey and art door to door without proper licensing, where those big now with profit are allowed the space to breathe between the lot and themselves, a cushion of disposable funds in their defense and release, when in fact a derivation of progression from where they once were to where they are now, tells a story where they were once the boy, selling door to door, when the law was young as well, allowing them to do so, having now grown up together, with the ability to influence the law itself, giving the allowance of a past state of liberty, now stripped from those wishing to become something themselves, rather than having to submit to a life of servitude to the titans that now turn the world as if they were its original creators and only inhabitants.
400 months of rent to pay, and then I can't find a job. Surely. Let me tell you, everything is out of sight. It's so hard, so hard.
Making sense of it. Only one thing is known, that to know, things must be known, or nothing's known. Yet, can knowing nothing be? For to know of nothing, something must be known, or not anything's known, nothing included. Making sense of it all as if it had to. But what's rational when rationale collapses into a motive designed for expression, when sense can change based upon where you are? What's a wheel but an irrational object where there are no roads, containing value instead through a spark of metaphoric symbology? What's a solid of constant width when motion is geared toward another geometry, designated by an uneven landscape, keeping us in a straight line even though it's not? From a business perspective, it makes sense to make all the sense you can. Ironic how only making sense will create something cold and mechanical, devoid of its senses, as if it can no longer feel. So in making sense of it, unaware that sense is derived from what is, and what is that isn't made to be, making sense made. Come to your senses and leave making sense of it behind. A little quirky. Salem watched as everything grew while his perspective shrunk. Though it was only on a screen, his brief visit with mystical literature left him with an impression, objective within the scientific mainstream, feeling as though he was now astral projecting himself onto the plane he now saw, drawing out the pathway of events taking place within his mind, the tools being an extension of himself, allowing him to enter another dimension. The secret to and operational know-how ingrained within the fiber of his neural network, truly forming a connection with the experience to an extremely limited number of individuals, if not only himself. He thought, what more am I than a pathway myself, from the all-encompassing expanse of energy traveling to all points? All astral projection is hitching a ride along an extension of this energy that travels all routes, forming a connection to it, and knowing that it connects all things. So, along those lines, he was where he now saw. But in keeping himself grounded, he knew that he wasn't. For if things were all other things, other than what they were, would they then even be what they were if they weren't? It all sounded like hogwash, even to himself, even though he had been in the field for some 20 years now. Often, the words among him and his colleagues were viewed upon by the layman as far-fetched fairy tales, more obscured in metaphor than any visible meaning. However, that was all about to change at this moment, as he would now be able to take multitudes of individuals to this realm, as this device would now allow him to capture visuals perceptible enough for anyone who wants to take a look. The screen before him now giving himself even the first true look into a world that had previously only lived in his imagination. The first thing to come now before him was as if he were coming in for a landing with the clear descent in an airplane, except the world grew all around him, not just from below. Miraculous geometries representative of electron clouds, a probabilistic place to find the known particulates. The designs looked something like a sacred geometrical sketch, but he figured, why wouldn't they be aesthetically arranged? After all, the mind is built upon stability, and if stability is built upon a pleasing arrangement, it only makes sense. The device not only allowed him to gain a picture of what the world was made up of, but it also allowed him to manipulate it as well. Touching this over here was as if he was touching over there, entangled particles reacting like the turning cogs on a clockwork mechanism. Truly, the thermodynamic nature of the universe at work, real-time response of manipulated motion, causing a reaction, even though the two seemed so separate. Like, it was all just one thing that had the potential to be anything, superpositioned in all places, time also being one of these places, a truly hairy equation, where the infinite nature of the universe meant that as time was given all the time to progress, what had happened had a chance to all happen again, meaning that the past, in a sense, lay in the future. Hence, what he played with now could affect all time. For if his mind was a product of the past, but he could reach far enough into the future at the present, could he alter then his mind to be like it was always what was, making history not even a thing set in stone? Would he even know? For all he could know would be what he knew, making then who he was, who he had always been. For he could be nothing else without it being who he was, and nothing else could be him without it not being something else. Yet all things had the potential to be all things. I fucking died last night in my sleep, and it wasn't the first time and it won't be the last. Grand illusions fresh on my mind, unrepeatable while conscious. Yet the melody lingers, a product of my mind that I can't reproduce. Given the parameters and told to do, then fucking restrained for doing it. Seeing the parameters now as putty, grant me freedom and watch as I put all of you squirming grubs out of business.
Got 400 months of rent to pay, and I can't find a job. Let me tell you, time's everything, it's getting higher.